Monday, Moon Day, Moo. The 19th of October 1910. I'd like to express something with Brother Alan. It's a thinker. It's very much the reason why I endeavoured to slow down and to go into mentalisation, and it will speak for itself. Without further ado, Brother Alan Watts and his simple solutions.
And so that split is implanted in us all. And because of our being split-minded, we are always dithering. Is the choice that I am about to make of the higher self or of the lower self? Is it of the spirit or is it of the flesh? Is the word that I have received of the Lord or is it of the devil?
That in itself is a moment to ponder. Brilliantly, eloquently put. We move on. Thank you, Alan.
And nobody can decide. Because if you knew how to choose, you wouldn't have
to. Again, as a thinker.
In the so-called moral rearmament movement, which is a very significant title, you test your messages that you get from God in your quiet time by comparing them with standards of absolute honesty, absolute purity, absolute love, and so on. But of course...
Okay, so to test yourself, that seems a logical way of self-analysing the thoughts that are within.
If you knew what those things were, you wouldn't have to test. You would know immediately. And do you know what those things are?
Check yourself before you wreck yourself is another way of putting that. Do not react, give a response, mentalisation, questioning thoughts, motives, self-doubt, self-esteem. When we go on about mentalisation, the health and wealth of the mind, the fortitude of the mind and the alchemy of the mind, are you beginning to be enlightened?
The more one thinks about the question, what would absolute love be? Supposing I could set myself the ideal of being absolutely loving to everybody, what would that imply in terms of conduct?
You'd need some big arms, wouldn't you? Basically hugging the realm. A lovely sentiment in itself again. Time to ponder, no segues, carrying on. Roughly 10 minutes of Zen with my interjection, maybe 30 minutes. Happy Moon Day.
Well, you can think about that till all is blue, because you could never get to the answer. The problems of life are so subtle that to try to solve them with vague principles, as if those vague principles were specific instructions, is completely impossible. So, it is important to overcome split-mindedness, but what is the way? Where can you start from?
It is the way. We have a way. We found a new way. And where can you start from is a question that I get asked quite a lot. David, where's a good place to begin from? Where's the book on common law that I need to read? How do I know what your principles, core values and morals, ethics are? How do I look at the language and the structure and the intricacy of the codified legal system? Why would you want to do that? You're not in that gang, but you quite readily need to understand what's being said about you to you. So interesting thought there. And I can't put it as good as this man, this Brother Alan. So if you've never met him before, we're going to continue on with the words of his wisdom, and I will echo back and interject at key points. So I get asked that question a lot. Where should I start? Let's listen to Alan.
You're already split. A Taoist saying is that when the wrong man uses the right means work in the wrong way.
When the wrong man uses the right means work in the wrong way. Another excellent part of a life example, real life example, where you go to utilize something and you want to use it for your own self-gratification, for your own self-gain, whatever, your heart's not in the right place, and so the right thing doesn't have the intended application, and it switches a roue on you, like the quantum electron being watched. It will switch from a wave to a particle, and a particle to a wave. So there we go. I continue on with Brother Alan.
So what are you to do? How can you get off it and get moving? Fundamentally, of course, you have to be surprised into it. Winthrop Sargent, not so long ago.
Welcome. I just want to say then to Ben, to Kevin, this is your Moon Day 10 minutes of Zen with David and Alan. It's a little bit of a Moon Day hug for you from SPLS Pro, and the intent comes from I and Brother Kevin alike. It's a simple solution to the confusion in your mind. We continue on. Another subject and issue put to bed. Enjoy.
Interviewed a great Zen priest in Kyoto who posed to him the question, "Who are you?" And he said, "Well, I'm Winthrop Sargent." And the priest laughed. "No," he said, "I don't mean that. I mean, who are you really?" Well, then he went into all sorts of abstractions about his being a particular human being and so on, who was a journalist and so on, and the priest just laughed and said, "No." Then the priest just tossed off the conversation, and a little later made a joke, and Sargent laughed, and he said, "There you are." There was an army officer who once came to a Zen master and said, "I have heard a story about a man who kept a goose in a bottle, and it was growing very rapidly, and he didn't want to break the bottle and he didn't want to hurt the goose, so how would he get it out?"
Excellent analogy. A goose in a bottle. You've been goosed, everyone. The next time you hear us say you've been goosed, remember the goose in the bottle.
The Zen master didn't answer the question at all, but simply changed the subject. Finally, the officer got up to leave, and he went over to the door, and suddenly the Zen master called out, "Oh, officer!" And he turned around and said, "Yes?" The master said, "There, it's out." So in the same way, if I say to you, "Good morning," you say, "Good morning." Nice day, isn't it? Yes.
What?
Or if I hit you, boom, you say, "Ouch." And you don't stop to hesitate to give these answers and these responses. You don't think about it when I say good morning, unless you're a psychiatrist. What would I be?
You see, and that's where the funniness comes into it, with all the somberness and the deep mentalization and reactions and speech and the way that we're programmed and how we view that and how we interpret it. This is key, all right? It really is key. And I found it again last night for all of those that are asking and wondering and lost and need a little booster as well. A bit of a joke, a bit of a Moon Day hug. And this is going on to Tube afterwards as well, so it's a 2-in-1, and I think it's what you need on a Monday, rather than focusing on targets and objectives and the fear factor that's out there. This is a little bit of an anti-fear factor. Those of you that utilise this and rewind this video and listen to it in its entirety, and furthermore do try to find Alan Watts's simple solution to the confusion in your mind. You'll find an hour and 16-minute video that this is taken from, that you'll get the link to later. All right, bless up. Here we go.
What could I be meaning? So you respond. So in exactly the same way, that kind of response, which doesn't have to be a deliberate response, a response of a no deliberating mind, is a response of a Buddha mind or an unattached mind. But you must not imagine that this is necessarily a quick response, because if you get hung up on the idea of responding quickly, the idea of quickness will be itself a form of obstruction. Very often when Dr. Suzuki is asked the question, very complicated question by some philosophy major at Columbia when he's giving lectures there.
What? Suzuki,
Silent for a
on
full
your
minute.
bike. On your bike.
And then says, yes. And this is exactly as spontaneous a response as it would be if he had answered immediately. Because during the period of silence, he is not fishing around to think of something to say. He is not at all embarrassed at being silent or at not knowing the answer.
No.
So, if you don't know the answer, you can be silent. If nobody asks a question, you can be silent. There's no need to be embarrassed about it or to be stuck on it. But you cannot overcome.
And remember, silence is deemed as tacit acquiescence when we use that back in a judicial capacity or in a capacity of a letter, a notice, an instrument of some legal or lawful kind, and there is a parameter of time affixed with that requirement, whether it be of the above, both, or either or. Then the failure to action on that and to recognise and to move forward is a breach, and puts the one that has not recognised and performed in the allotted time into a default position. Silence, there's a language of silence, and Alan's going to continue on. I'm not going to ruin it, but it's comparable. Where we get our backups from are places like this, you know, and you need to consider the alchemy, the mental side, visualization, self-esteem, depression, anxiety, mentalization. We're trying to help, and this is where I got stronger and built the pathway for my intended inner peace, which I have not attained.
Being stuck. If you think that somehow you would be guilty if you were stuck. When you are perfectly free to feel stuck or not stuck, then you're unstuck. Because actually, nothing can stick on the real mind, and you will find this out if you watch the flow of your thoughts. There is an expression in Chinese which means the flow of thoughts, or what we call in literary criticism, stream of consciousness.
The download, sometimes I've said, and Brother Kevin has said, and others have said, I don't know where I get that from sometimes, it just came out, all right? And what you think you're going to say in a hangout, a podcast, and you're holding your tongue to say, then your moment comes to speak and you forget everything. So if it was already built into the brain and etched in, it wouldn't be able to be dropped and forgotten. The point is articulation of inner consciousness, self-consciousness. When you speak from the heart, you don't have a script. Like these lot on the TV, they've got a script, and they don't speak from the heart, and they're doing a business legal regime, and in the legal regime they don't have a heart and they don't speak from the heart. They have a core directive from the Cornell, such as, here we go, sorry.
And they put the character for thought 3 times. Nyan, nyan, nyan. And so you will notice that thought follows thought follows thought when you are just ruminating. And those thoughts arise and go like waves on the water. All the time, they come and go. And when they go, they are as if they had never been here. So actually this shows your mind doesn't stick. Really. You can get the illusion of it sticking by, for example, cycling the same succession of thoughts over and over again. And that gives a sense of permanence in the same way as when you revolve a cigarette butt in the dark. You get the illusion of there being a solid circle, although there is only the single point of fire.
What and a lovely analogy. Alan Watts in the dark with his cigarette, making circles and patterns, trying to enigmatically paint the physical mental picture of how the mind and its perplexity, simplicity, how that works there. So if any of you have had similar mental barriers and concerns, it's normal. Don't worry.
And it is from this connecting of thoughts that we get the sensation that behind our thoughts there is a thinker who controls them and experiences them. Although the notion that there is a thinker is just one member in the stream of thoughts.
You may have heard me mention the thought potentiality consciousness, the Akashic records, the halls of Amenti. They're very big and they echo sizes of grandeur. Here we go. Intuition, you just felt that something was wrong. Yeah, well, did you feel that or did you know that?
For example, if you get a certain kind of rhythm that goes diggy 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 boop, diggy 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 boop, diggy 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 boop, diggy 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 boop, the boop is part of the rhythm, but it can be used as a cue.
A cue? Hello,
so
cue.
You get,
Cue's
in
here.
relation to diggy 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 boop, you get thought, thinker, thought, thinker. And if this happens regularly enough and long enough, you get the illusion of there being someone who thinks, apart from the stream of thoughts which come and go, the stream of experiences. And we use such absurd phrases, not only as thinking our thoughts, but feeling our feelings, seeing sights and hearing sounds. But you must understand, it is perfectly obvious that seeing a sight is seeing, hearing a sound is hearing.
Now that in itself is quite massive to put yourself where we often put ourselves, and he's going to go further now about the I and the I and I observing I, and different areas of conversation and thought and questioning of. But there's certain points you may need to pause and just reflect, because we do appreciate this man, lets things rolls off his tongue in such a complex, array of assortments, very varied, intellectually astounding to say the least. So you will have to generally take this. This is quite heavy, but it's also what's needed. What? Alan Watts. What's needed? Here he is.
Feeling a feeling is feeling. So in the same way, thinking a thought is thinking. But you get split-minded, you see, and so you get I and me, and the I who ought to or must control me as the sensation of some real entity that stands aside from thoughts and...
entity, legal entity, spectral, metaphysical entity. Look, entity, self, data self, many entities there. Again, just a point of note.
Chooses among them, controls them, regulates them, and so on. Actually, this is a way to have one's thoughts not controlled. The more there is this duality of the separate thinker standing aside from the thoughts, or the separate feeler watching or feeling the feelings, the more the stream of feelings is coaxed into self-protective activity, into getting more and more like a stuck record, the purposes of which are to protect and to aggrandize and enlarge the status of the supposed thinker. When Joshu, who was a Tang Dynasty Zen master, was asked, he had made some reference to the enlightened mind being like a mind of a child. And he said, well, what is the mind of a child? And he said, a ball in a mountain stream.
Yes.
Why? Thought follows thought instantaneously without interruption. So the saying, walk or sit as you will, but whatever you do, don't wobble.
And for me, I was and have been a massive wobbler. This one's a wobbler. Part 3 was a track in Sheffield, a baseline wobbler. It's normal and it happens, and especially for those with nervous energy.
Now, we can see this very clearly from confusions we can get into in activity. I have just said we can see this very clearly from confusions we get into in activity.
Alan Watts did his own rewind selector back in the day. Look at that, I had just said. And furthermore, rewind and play it again. Selector.
What kind of a statement is that? When I raise the question, what kind of a statement was it that I just made, I'm beginning to talk about talking. And one can do that, provided you don't try to do it while you're making the original statement.
Heavily important and massively happens a lot, especially by myself and others, and the way that we see. So this has been going on a long time. It's not just that we've got an opinion about magic words and spelling and the power of hokum. This is actually real, and it's about time we grabbed the bull, both horns, and said, whoa, Nelly.
If I want to say something about what I've just said, then I must do it later, mustn't I? But not at the same time.
Yes, Alvin.
I cannot say you are a fool, and at the same time say I'm giving you an insult in so many words. I cannot say, or in mathematics, I cannot write down a certain equation, and as I'm writing it down, simultaneously state what kind of an equation this is. Unless, of course, I invent an exceedingly complex language which talks about itself as it goes along.
Aha.
But in the ordinary way, people get completely mixed up by that. In the middle of being about to say to somebody anything, you start to think about whether this is the right thing to say, and you start wobbling. You get, in other words, too much feedback. And too much feedback makes any mechanism go crazy. So in the same way, when you are very, very aware of a difference between the deeds and the doer, and the doer while doing the deeds is always sort of commenting on them, the doer never really gets with it.
The doer and the deeds, I find that just incredible. This is brilliant.
In other words, you are about to strike a nail, and you wonder as you are about to hit it, is this the right place to put it? And so you probably hit your thumbnail instead of the nail, because you don't go right through with hitting that nail. This is not saying, let me mark this again, it is not saying that there should be no criticism of thought. But if you criticize thought while thinking, as if there were a critic thinker standing aside from the stream of thought, then you get all balled up.
Right, and that's very important to take note of. Let it flow. Don't question. Wait for the moment to be over. Let it carry you through. Have the belief and self-confidence to be just confident and knowing. Those that believe don't fully know. The way that the government talks, the language which they talk in, the case law that we found about threatening and weird behavioural talk, an act of war at sometimes, threatening and etc. So it is it's very key aspects across many areas of life right now. Newscasters, politicians, officials alike, the legal language as we've come to understand, inner stand, king stand, queen stand, etc.
And that is exactly what happens in the process of attachment, or what are called in Buddhist klesha, which mean disturbing confusions of the mind. And you see, this kind of confusion is something to which the human organism is peculiarly liable, because the human organism has language, you see, thinking is silent language. And
that is the one. There we go. Okay. And we like to have attachment to thoughts and ideas and memories, and often remember them wrong. And we have to mentally overcome quite a lot of our comfort zone areas. Very important.
I mean, language language in the most inclusive sense of the word, not only words, but also images and numbers, notation. Just because then we can talk about anything, we can talk about talking, we can talk about thinking, we can talk about ourselves, as if we could stand aside and say, said I to myself, said I. All we are actually doing is making a second thought, or thought stream, which comments on the one that went before. And then pretending that the second stream is a different stream than the first.
Stay with him.
That's because there are built into our minds all kinds of phony images about memory. We think, for example, of memory by analogy with engraving. In order to remember something, we write it down. And so we have a flat and stable piece of paper, and we make marks on it with a pencil, and they stay there. So we begin to think, is mental memory something of the same kind? Is there something stable upon which the passage of thoughts makes an impression? We say, he impressed me very much.
Oh, no, you don't. We say, I will tend to that later as my mistaker for not going on. It is on Do Not Disturb. Wow, never mind. We're nearly finished.
This was a lasting impression on my mind.
Come on, Alan.
As if we were tablets. Indeed, the philosopher Locke used the expression tabula rasa, or clean slate, to describe the mind of a child. This is a mind which has not yet collected any memories, as if there were some sort of surface which accumulated these things and preserved them, and that's me. But you see, this superstition is related to
the superstition of, listen to this is key and important. I'm glad we didn't get interrupted there. Yes, I find this bit very, very key and integral to what we know and do and what we've found. Ears up.
Much more ancient superstition that the world consists of two elements, one of which is stuff and the other of which is form. This is a myth based on a model of the world which is fundamentally ceramic.
Substance over the form, the legal realm. Okay, when I tell you they emulate everything to do with natural law and the ways that the natural realm and energies and principles are, substance over form, stuff and form. Alan, this is just brilliant.
God formed Adam out of the dust of the ground, and so there is a stuff. And so there are forms engraved in it or imposed on it or stamped on it like a seal is stamped on wax. What is stuff like apart from form? What is form like apart from stuff? All those problems which have bothered people for centuries are based on asking the question in the wrong way, on having used the wrong image for the process.
Yes.
Actually, since nobody ever saw a piece of shapeless stuff, and nobody ever saw a piece of stuffless shape.
Just brilliant. Thank you. Cheery Monday. I hope you're smiling out there.
The whole thing really is saying that they are the same. And there isn't any necessity even to think of a difference between them. Even the contrasting words, form and substance, or form.
Okay, are you following? Are you with us?
Form and matter are a nuisance. There is process. There is the flow of thought. The flow of thought doesn't have to happen to anyone. Experience does not have to beat upon an experiencer. There is all the time simply the one stream going on, and we are convinced that we stand aside from it and observe it, because we've been brought up that way.
We've been indoctrinated, Alan, and forgive us for we don't know what we do, but you know what? We're on the way out and we're all stepping into one big stream together, the original stream that will lead us back to the oceans of the thought potentiality, consciousness as newer, improved, better versions of man's self as man, with the person, the rebirth, the cleansing, the baptismal periods, Aquarius, the stars, the biblical prophecies, the times, the Rishi Sunak, Boris Johnson, and Keir Starmer, in the Corona age of the times. We don't make this up to scare you. I'm afraid that some of us notice, and some of us have a job to do. And whilst you may be panicking and biting your nails and stockpiling and looking out to see if the neighbours are conforming, we are here with a different message and a booster, a big virtual hug for all in the public of SPLS Pro Facebook and Indiglo, my account that I manage on behalf of. And I've got a message for this Monday, and it's a kickback booster message, word up. Thank you all for your messages, your support, and to the public fam. The last bit from Alan, then we go in.
But you know, in your stream of thought and experience, I am an object, and a very fleeting and passing one. And consequently, also in my stream of experience, you also are people who come and go. We are all, you see, living in the same world. We think there is me and there is an external world around me, but I am in your external world and you are in my external world. And if you think about that, you see we are all in one world, going along together. There isn't really the internal and the external. There is simply the process. It's very important to get rid of that illusion of duality between the thinker and the thought. So find out who is the thinker behind the thoughts. Who is the real, genuine you?
Who got the funk? Who has got the funk?
And so one of the methods that is used is shouting. The Zen master would say to a student, now, I want to hear you. I want to hear you say the word mu and really mean it. Because I want to hear not just the sound, but the person who says it. Now produce for me that. He says, mu! And the Zen teacher says, no, not yet. Mu!
Happy Moon Day, Alan. Moo to you, my brew.
And it says, it's only coming from your throat. I want to hear your belly, you know? And always, you see, it'll never come while the person is trying to make a differentiation between a true moo and a false moo. To act with confidence, you just do it. But since people are not used to that, it is necessary to set up protected situations in which it can be done. If we just, in the ordinary way of social intercourse, acted without deliberation, we would get into amazing confusions. As when people say, always speak the truth, never tell a white lie. And they say exactly what is true and what they think about other people. Well, they can raise a great deal of trouble. But the experience of Zen has been that there should be a kind of enclosure in which this kind of behavior can be done until the people are expert in it and know how to apply it in all situations.
That'll do. So there's a lot there to reflect upon if you've just entered into the audio stream. Welcome to the stream. You've hit the stream, and we're going to continue on with more updates and information regarding mental health and wealth, something that we've always taken a keen interest in. and we're not masters of it, but we have some interesting angles, and I believe all of us at some point will suffer from anguish and emotions of that, and Alan has an excellent way, a short and concise British way of explaining how and things, what go on in the realm, and Zen masters alike. So it's a different angle, and you can listen to thousands of hours effectively of Alan Watts. That was just an excerpt from an hour and something video that I wanted to play you about the mind, thoughts, the strength, the flow, the energy, and how we see stuff, and what your mental privacy, your mental intellect, you deserve to have that unhindered, and nobody should come and defile that process, thoughts, whether it be externally, unintentionally, or externally, third parties, intentionally, mind control, fear, panic, definitive lies, half-truths and whole lies, misinformation, propaganda, bribery and corruption, for the reasons of commercial, material, financial profits and gains that are then hidden in offshore tax havens with these multi-billionaire tycoons and their families. It does appear to some extent, if we keep on this, that they will not get away with it. They will be mentioned, and the offshore territories maybe will be freed during this, we'll say, high year of a wash. So I get asked a lot of questions, but fundamentally the most frequently asked question: where do I start? What book do I read? It starts from within. It starts with what that great man has intended for you to mentally cognize within that outlay. And I cannot commend it enough, the art of slowing down and listening with two ears, and the language of silence, that being thought as well as people, man being silent, and then you reading into that tacit acquiescence, etc. Many languages of silence. So that is a key aspect: slowing, listening to yourself, and only then, when you are semi-grounded on the pathway of, will your brain, consciousness, intelligence, intellect, desire, energy, self-esteem, positivity, good fortune and luck start to come in. It's like a gear mechanism system, all right? Those that want to get on the road too, you have to power yourself, and you have to govern yourself, you have to repair yourself, you have to protect yourself. It's all a self-battle, just one of the things in life that you can't pay somebody else to do, and you can't get some kind of a, I'll enter in halfway through and just do half of it because I already know a bit, like. So no, I'm afraid you have to go in and deal with what the game of life wants you to deal with. You take those cards on the deck that the dealer's given you. A deck is also a piece of wood, you know, on a boat there, the rebondage and recording of the wood pallets, deals being put on boats, pallets internationally arriving, foreign goods getting a deal, comes from the boats people talk, and where the dealer would be on that boat place every month or 6 months when it came in with its goods from afar. You're being dealt and talked to in a legal, commercial, public, libelous way. And these actions upon you, when you're not attorneys at law, you're not legally trained, and you're not liable for anything other than what these false claims are in another language from foreign entities and etc. So it's no wonder that man from time to time finds themselves in a place they feel like they don't belong, that isn't theirs, that's all nonsensical, means nothing to them. You need a translator effectively when the sugary stuff hits the fan and makes the candy floss. It's a daytime show, we'll keep it clean and sweet. See how that mental functionality went from the usual hitting the fan to the sweet sugar and making candy floss. It's the alchemy live and direct. You've got to find the strength and the confidence and listen to others than us, and test and research, and eventually the path opens up. And only when the ears are on the student to listen does the teacher appear. You will find, not my words, with every long journey, 10,000 mile step journey, it begins with one step. Is a Confucius message there, so it is long, and well done, welcome. Hello, my queen, sovereign, Thank you. Welcome to the audio. Listen back to Alan Watts. He is a legend, and we have done for today. Hello to Tube and everybody else. Much love and ciao for now.